Happy Halloween. This is me. Oh, come on. I didn't. Hey, goodness. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Maude's Book Club. There we go. I've got to tidy up these little corners because that bothers some people if it's not in between the lines. I matched the border. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Maude's Book Club. There's Zelda's here. There's Zelda's there. There's Zelda. I wish I could show you. Can I? I want to show everyone Tim's video. I want to show it so bad. How do I do that? There it is. But now I need to. This is so anticlimactic to start the show. Hi, everyone. Let me know how you are at the moment. Sound off in the comments what you gave this book out of 5. I want to hear from you. But I'm going to do something real sneaky. And that is try and quickly edit everyone else out so we just see the one thing that made me crack up for so long when I started the call. Colleen's nodding her head along. We're nearly there. Does anyone want to tell me what they gave this book out of 5? Academic, I'll start with you. You have thoughts.
I have a lot. I liked so much about this book. I'm going to start with 3.7. I'd give it more than 3.5 because I think it's better than average. But yeah, 3.7 is what we're going with.
3.7. I gave it a 3.5. Why 3.7 for you?
I give everything 100 and then I just rate it down on things I didn't like. So I didn't like the setting of the second part of the book. The whole environment was not aesthetically as pleasing as I would have liked it to be.
Deep Moline.
Yeah. Well, I don't mind Deep Moline as much as journeying to the place of Gog Magog. I fell asleep to that section multiple times. So no good. And then I think the pacing was a little bit off, and I don't know exactly how I would fix that. But those are my big things, I think.
They're very valid things, and I agree with them completely. The pacing just seemed to drag on quite a bit. It was playing into some tropes of fairy tales, but then not in others. It introduced a massive influx of new characters, most of whom we didn't really need to learn about, and it sort of bogged down the progression of storytelling. Aaron's here going, no, we didn't. Yeah, so I'm going to keep going around and get...
I don't like sand.
It's coarse. It's rough and irritating.
And it gets everywhere.
Thanks for that, Jimmy. We are all going to be having a little whinge today. Hold on, which one's the Australian word? Is it whining or whinging? Which one did...
Whinging. Is this... well, whining is Americans.
Okay, yeah. We're going to have a whinge about the cringe in this book. Yay. I see puppy. I see Lisa's fluffy dog. Zel's just chilling down there. There's Tim, he's dead. It's still funny. He's going to stay in the shot there.
Are you going to leave me up there the whole time?
I'm honestly so tempted to, yes. I think it's so funny. I've just got this skeleton in the corner. And because it's Discord and we're on the call, it lights up when you're talking. So it really looks like the skeleton saying things. It's just perfect.
That's the beauty.
No, it's good. It's good. Stephen Malovsky. Hello, Stephen says, as Stanley Kubrick said, Stephen King is great at building atmosphere and a great story structure, but lousy in developing that. Interesting. Hey, Ropena, thank you for 5 subs. Loving that one. Lord Woman. Cohenraid. Bag Lady. The Theo Groalwi. And Movies are Dope all just got gifted a sub. Here.
The OG Royal We is how it says.
The OG Royal We. I was like, Theogally woo. Thank you for that. Help. Goodness me. Thanks, Ropanda. I really appreciate that. 5 gifted subs. If you were lucky enough to get one, make sure you thank Ropanda in the comments because we're nice around here. Thierry, you're giving it a 3.75 out of 5. You liked it, especially after you imagined the story animated has a Studio Ghibli adaptation. You are very good at casting. Did you see this whole thing in a specific aesthetic? Did you?
Yeah, basically, Princess Mononoke for the monsters. Like the monsters from Princess Mononoke with all the tentacles and stuff.
Oh, yeah, okay.
And then all the people from the Fantasyland as Flying Castle.
Okay.
Kind of design.
Yeah.
So yeah, I put that in my head. I didn't see any like actor's voice. It's just Studio Ghibli style animation. Yeah.
Okay. I think that would have been very helpful to be able to picture it like that and enjoy it a little bit more. Star Pilot 6 says, I like the first half more than the second, but I'd give it about a 3 out of 5. Vaden, you gave it a 4 out of 5. Doing well, but had to take some breaks at some points for 30 minutes just to do something. Tell me about your 4 out of 5.
Okay. Basically, yeah, I enjoyed the story a lot. I like all the fantasy parts. I just wish we had more time to develop it. I felt like we could kind of cut down a little bit on the whole stuff in the beginning. Basically, the stuff with the mundane world, because the mundane world was interesting, but it dragged on a while. And then once we got to the fantasy, we kind of forced it to hurry up to get through all the stuff. Like I said, we didn't have a chance to really develop the characters that much. So all the fantasy characters, they kind of just showed up and basically just kind of did what was needed for the story, and that was it.
There was a lot of drag on without any dragons, so that was annoying. I saw that wince, Robin. I saw that wince, but also the laughter as well, so I'll take it. Speaking of Robin, 3, maybe 3.5. Give me your thoughts.
Like, the whole Prince Charlie prophecy was never brought up. Like, all of a sudden they're just like, hey, Prince Charlie, the prophecy. And I was like, what prophecy?
But let's just really double down that should you have blonde hair and blue eyes, the Aryan race means that you have more privilege and power and people will follow you. So looks are so important. In fact, they'll make your hair blonde and have blue eyes just to get the point that that's what royalty looks like. Thoughts on that? I mean, I obviously had no qualms with it. No, I'm kidding. I just thought that was a bit ridiculous. And out of all the things that he could really push, this whole the Germans Aryan race theory is not one that I would have melded into fairy tales. In fact, I think Disney's done a very good job of, moving away from the white princess and into that trope, and even into the trope of needing true love to solve all things. I just thought out of all the tropes that we're going into, that one was a little strange. Did it take anyone out of the book? Was it offensive to some people?
So it didn't bother me at all, because I didn't view them in our human realm, or our like politicized 20, those are markers of race. It was Stephen King, and I think he's tongue-in-cheek alluding he needed some physical marker to show that he was becoming prince. So he was almost self-consciously saying he turned into the stereotype of whatever that prince was. He was just using the most convenient ones he had there. I mean, I guess he could have used some sort of mark or sigil or whatever, but I don't think that it's intended to, in that context, the way it's presented is intended to be racialized. But maybe there's a tongue-in-cheek. I think there's almost a double game where he's kind of making fun of it, right? Where it's not that they follow him because he's blonde hair and blue eyes, but that he just needs some sort of marking, just like the mother goose, the shoe, and the goose girl. There's all these random loose tropes that are floating around and rearranged, right, from fairy tales. So I didn't view that as like in a particularly, because the character wasn't racialized. He wasn't, I mean, the biggest criticism you can make, I guess, is it's pretty quiet on topics of race, but he does have an Asian best friend, right? Who, by the way, breaks all the stereotypes. He's this like brilliant Asian jock guy who's like kind of like, he's kind of this perfect guy, right? Perfect friend. He's not only like
reliable,
really good grades, he's also good at all the sports, right? He's just sort of almost too perfect, right? And he reminded me a little bit of like the Mark, except he doesn't die or anything. Nothing horrible happens to him. He's just so. I think in that, and then he loses all that, and he realizes it's not that the blondness or blue eyes make him a prince or anything. They're just fitting him into the whatever story role he's supposed to be temporarily, and then he's just gone again, right?
Yes.
So,
the only problem I had with your response is that you did not refer to me as Princess Maude, but everything else I would.
oh well, I would Princess Maude.
Thank you. Well, I mean, I'm just following the rules here. Mark's coded, says Ropanda. Academic, thoughts on this one?
I just want to echo exactly that point. Is that anecdotally, I sort of at points throughout this book, because of how racial, like I think Stephen King made Charlie as a character. At points, I thought, like, is this guy black? I'm like, and so when I heard him to go blonde and blue-eyed, I'm like, oh my goodness, he's got. Yeah, I could see why that would be really confusing and strange for you to have blonde hair and blue eyes, like all of a sudden. And so like it's really interesting how much I was able to like not able to pin him down to a particular race. Like the only thing that I thought that maybe he was white because of like the area of the country that he was in and the fact that he was essentially in like some suburban area in Illinois, essentially. And that was the only marker that I would have really said, okay, you're probably not black, but yeah.
Did you listen to it?
Oh yeah, I listened to it.
That guy sounded white AF.
He did, but that means that's the standard, all right, for all audiobooks. Everyone sounds white AF, all right? So
yeah,
I think that's kind of how it works.
Stephen says, well, excuse me, princess. We love a link joke. Oh yeah, Vaden just did that the same thing. Yes.
Didn't we just have a discussion yesterday about you being a gold?
Yeah.
Like, you need to be a princess too?
I didn't say it. According to the scripture, according to this, if you royalty, there's a prophesized prince or princess, you get blonde hair and blue eyes.
It's only an empress, and it's Royal Princess Maude, the Queen in Oz.
By a hair color.
To be fair though, this is like emphasizing a lot of the Grimm's fairy tale European Western fairy tales, which were all a lot of a white, blonde, blue-eyed princes and stuff like that, rather than African, Asian type fairy tales, which there are a lot of.
True. Hans Christian and or Andersen, I believe, was also quite. Yeah, I get it. Ropanda says that's why she needs to be a princess. That is quite a gold response. Oh, well, if you saw the interview that I did with Pierce yesterday, you'll know what we're talking about. There is a U in my name. That's where the gold comes. And I'm tall, all right? Just can't help that I'm so superior according to all of these books. That's so weird. It is so weird to read.
No complex there at all.
No, I'm good. Miss Necromancer says, honestly, what's the percentage of black audio actors? Probably even fewer than face actors. That is a great question, and one I would actually really love to dive into. I know that there are an influx of especially fantasy books with black protagonists, and I would like to know if they have black narrators as well. I know that I think Priory of the Orange Tree, I believe, had a black narrator. Yes. She was British, though, so she had a British accent with it, but that was quite distinct, and it actually did change the tone of the book for me, I feel. Really interesting discussions. Colleen says we need more racially diverse heroes. I know, which is why going back into sort of like the European sort of things. And Colleen, you made a really great point earlier when talking about who, the royalty are, and then also, nice, look at that. And then also who the villains are. And you've said that they were all grotesque. They were all ugly or deformed and like physically in a way sort of like disabled. You looked at Hannah, who had boils erupting from her face, flatulence. She was just disgusting, but she was also 20 feet tall. And so it's very, and then Eldon, the flight killer, was grotesque with his Cthulhu-esque tentacles that he couldn't even control. All of the even like the curse made a person have deformities as well, which was slowly lifted. But it would have been really cool to sort of see, I don't know. There's a lot of kind of conversation about, is gray removing color or a part of color in terms of seen as like a negative thing or a positive thing. You can absolutely read into all of that. Game Wizard says, I think if Charlie/King explained why it was happening, like everything else for the most part was, but him turning into a prince because it's required, because that's how this works, would have been enough. But the lack of explanation for something to suddenly happen took me out of it. Interesting. Robin says that they were talking about the prophesized prince being able to change. So I kept thinking that Charlie was going to grow wings or something, not just bleach his hair and put colored contacts in. Or as I like to call it, dude went Super Saiyan. That even made more sense.
Only blue eyes instead of green, but yeah, same point.
Yeah. I thought they had blue eyes in that. Is it green? Is Goku rocking green eyes when he's all supercharged?
Yep, green eyes.
It's still so hot. I love green eyes. They're so rare though. Pylang says, Disney took a few decades, but yeah, they were eventually able to kind of get out of the trope here. Ropana said, I just didn't understand why it had to be blonde. It didn't offend me though. Star Pilot earlier said, yeah, the blonde/blue-eyed thing was weird and kind of unsettling. I was kind of hoping that maybe they'd reveal that it was just the first stages of Charlie being infected by the gray, but nope, seems face value. Going back to the general consensus, Miss Necromancer said it very aptly. The first half was definitely the stronger half. I'm still salty that we didn't actually read a horror book for Horror Month. I thought we were going to get a bit more horror than we did. There were chances, there was potential for it to kind of like delve into what the foundations of a fairy tale really is. It's not Shades of Grey, which funnily enough is what the cursed people literally is, but it's inherently good versus evil. That's what fairy tales are. It removes a lot of the nuance, and it's evil for the sake of evil. Villains doing their thing, power, trying to take control of and rule, and it's like whether you rule with a good heart or an evil heart. And I kind of thought that they could have leaned into sort of what evil looks like in a fairy tale, lift the veil a little bit, and instead of it being sort of squeaky clean and almost muted, it could have gone, oh, this is what horror is. And I guess we kind of saw it with the palace being defiled, but not as much. Aaron, you got thoughts?
So I think Stephen King kind of pulled a Dark Souls Elden Ring, where it's like he's describing the atmosphere of the world as this broken place and letting that tell the story of like what happened. Because it's like all we're seeing, like, you know, the evidence of like what happened is like through what Charlie has seen along his little pathway. Like he saw the mermaid killed, he saw all these houses empty, like things are shifting than they shouldn't be. Because even some of the citizens, like Eris later on, is like, I swear the buildings are moving or something like that. It's like, I'm not crazy, am I? It's like, okay, this is not normal, because even a citizen of this world is like saying this shouldn't be happening. So I kind of like that, but the pacing was bad.
Pacing was bad.
He was either too fast in certain spots with the pacing, where he just brushes past them, like with being Claudia and Leah and Woody and all that stuff, and then slow where he needs to be fast. Like, okay, get through this town.
All of that deep Malign stuff, honestly. That
could have been, there's so many things that just could have been trimmed down.
Agree.
And it would have been much better.
Kate said it added an eldritch twist, but it still wasn't horror. How did you find the Cthulhu introduction right at the end? That what was living in the dark well kind of possessed Flight Killer's body and took over from him.
Very intriguing. I was just about to type that in the second half, it would have been incredible if Deep Malign was gone entirely.
Yep.
And they spent that time more focusing on Claudia and Woody and Leah and talking about like her relationship with her brother and like focusing on that instead of him being just in this tournament. And
yeah, it added nothing to
even
the
like
story.
bringing in more, even like just lore, kind of maybe how something like Bloodborne does the lore with like the Eldritch, like the insight, something like more like that. Because I did like the Eldritch stuff where I wish there had been more of, you know, the city moving and having the non-Euclidean geometry and architecture and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
But it's just, it spent too much time in Deep Meline. I mean, I still gave it a 3.5 rounded up to 4 because I loved the first half and there were parts of the second half that were good, but Deep Meline could have just been cut out entirely.
It didn't add anything at all. And in fact, I think what would be really cool if the subtle things were happening in that first half of the book, because I liked it as well. For some reason, this was slice of life. This was just going about his business. I would have. You start to learn a little bit about Charlie in that regard. He holds himself to a high standard. He's suffering through grief.
Yeah, it would have been cool if you know, when he heard the scraping when we hadn't gone down the well yet, when he like heard the scraping in the shed and he knew that there was like something in there. If there had been some sort of almost like blip in our side of whenever Gog Magog was like starting to waken a little bit.
I like that.
If he had maybe seen like just a shiver in our, like the shed kind of warped for a second, or the further he got in, like the stairs got all like funky, or, you know, just for a second. So it would have introduced it earlier. That would have been really cool.
Yes. I think that the first third of the book was still too long. We could have had sort of like that mysticism sort of a little bit earlier. I mean, when he ran into what was the first Rumpelstiltskin guy's name with the broken wrist?
Christopher Polly.
Okay, so if when facing Polly, there were these like moral decisions that he could make. Could he have killed him or just broken his wrists or set him free? I would have loved all these little things that happened. Would he go through Radar not thinking that it was a sweet dog to try and help Mr. Bowditch? Like all of these things, I kind of wish they had more fate tied to his decisions. And
this is maybe going to be an unpopular opinion just about the pacing of the second half, that it shouldn't have had, like Radar went on the sundial too early, and it should have maybe been, it's something that would have happened at the end, and Charlie would have decided not to put her on it and just let her die naturally. But I know like people don't like when the dog dies, but
I was more concerned about Radar than the entire town at one point. Go say with that what you will.
Because there was the whole thing about good people didn't go on, like, because when he asked like about why didn't they go on the sundial, and they said like good people don't go on there, and I mean Mr. Bowditch did, but there was the whole thing was like, well, he was a coward that just brought gifts, and he had like, it took a lot for Charlie to get to know him. So, and the thing is like he hadn't prepared for anything, as Charlie said, like what if he had died? He would have just left the well there by himself and like no one to defend it, and it could have been a catastrophe. And it's just, I don't know. I think after that, it would have been like, I don't think I should put Radar on this thing.
I wish there was more consequence with that. It was an afterthought. Oh, by the way, if you go on it as a human, you become infertile. Like, I kind of wish that had a lot more at stake. You know, maybe he had to rewind himself because that wound that he got on his arm was fatal. And by doing that, he was able to kind of save his life, but then suffered through the consequence of not being able to procreate. Maybe that's something that, you know, he'd already had a girlfriend and that was a life that he'd had ahead of him. Or, you know, maybe he was supposed to, I mean, we found out that the royals are just spreading their seed everywhere. Hence, there were so many whole people, because those royals were just like, woo-wee. You wish there were more with Petra. Exactly. I would have loved the fact that Mr. Bowditch wasn't the chosen one because he didn't have the courage necessary. that they thought because he came from this mystical world that he could have been the chosen one, and that there was an element of fate with him, but his decisions meant that he didn't get his blonde hair and blue eyes, that his actions weren't actually making him the person that was going to save the day. And in his sort of like last moments, he's like, you have to take over because I thought it could be me and I'm not the person and I can't have children. So I'm going to have to trust that it's you. But fate, in that first half of the book, with Charlie's decisions, led him to that point where he'd passed enough of the tests, so to speak, that he was that person. I also would have loved more of a moment with Claudia, Woody, and Leah and their flaws. You've got Woody and Claudia who stuck their head in the sand, who completely stopped fighting for their land, and they were waiting for the promised person, but they didn't think that they had enough sort of resources or strength to be able to take it on themselves. Leah's denial at not thinking that it was her brother who was the flight killer. All of these things could have played so much more heavily into this fairy tale. Some of the things that I really liked, though, is that Charlie saved the cricket, the snub, I think it's called, snab, from Peterkins, you know, and that act of kindness served him so well many times over. That's what I'm saying with Charlie's decisions of goodness have come back to help him. But I also wish that the times where he used from the dark well, you know, that darkness that he said, and he kept saying that he was a dark prince, fucking where? Where? If you're going to be a dark prince, like, I want to see what that looks like, you know? Maybe his hair turned black and he had black eyes. I don't know. But it would be really cool to kind of just see so much more to this. For 1,000 words, nothing really happened of substance, I don't think. The first half could have completely been used into the second half of action and consequence, action and reaction. We could have got a lot more of an understanding and seeing Charlie change into this prince. He just talked a little different. His words sounded different. He looked different. That's so shallow. That's such face value. I don't think that the tournament in the prison needed to happen at all. I don't think that added any value. Kate said that, and this is another example of consequence of actions. Red Molly literally swatted away Peterkin and he ripped in half. And so he was squashed like a bug. So his fate was determined. And I really wanted more emphasis on the fate part here because it is a fairy tale. If you're going to lean into the woman with the shoe, the goose girl, things like that, go so heavy and put it all throughout it. We kind of had a lot of Rumpelstiltskin and a little bit of everything else, and then a whole lot of nothing that wasn't a part of a fairy tale at all. That was inconsistent as well. Is this making sense to anyone else? Anyone got thoughts, want to add to this at all? Go, Aaron.
So, pretty much, you probably see me like just emphasize like just yes, everything you're saying, yes. like what Kay was saying earlier is like radar going on the sundial was too early. Because like everything else after that, it just dragged everything down. The whole prophecy thing is like, oh, Claudia and Woody, it's like we can't do anything. We were waiting for somebody like you to come along and solve our problems. Was like,
and he got mad in the last paragraph about it.
Right, and the whole like, oh, right, we have to tie up this loose end of like why you can't be on the sundial or something like that, and why only radar could or somebody like radar, like because you'd be in furloughs, like. You could have explained that so earlier. Like Bowditch was trying to explain it before, but then he dies because of the heart attack. He couldn't leave it in a note or anything like that. Nobody there was like, they knew he was going to go to the sundial. Claudia, Leah, all of them knew he was going there. Why not just say, oh, by the way, don't go on there or you're going to be infertile. It's going to cause problems for you. You're not going to die, but it's going to be shitty for you later on.
You'll get the reward, but it comes with a risk. That's it. And what's more important like in that moment? Yeah.
Like King didn't basically explain a lot of what he needed to explain, and he over-explained things that he didn't have to explain as much as he did.
Well said. Vaden, you got thoughts?
Oh, just the whole infertile thing was mentioned, and it is important, but I think it's what's more important about the consequences of being on the actual sundial was like it changes you. Like they mentioned that's the important thing they're afraid of. It changes your personality, and that's supposedly it's hinted at that's why Howard Bowditch became so reclusive, so paranoid, and how he became the web person he is. Like we don't know how he was before in the past. We don't know if he was friendly. We don't know if he was more of a, we just don't know who he was at all before the change. So afterwards, it made him like a recluse, and it could have massive consequences. Like the well could have been found by anyone. Like, and it was only by luck or fate or whatever you want to call it, the story, that Charlie happened to be the one who became the caretaker. But it was because of that consequence and taking the sundial for himself. So.
Yep. Him living with absolute regret. I think the fact that he couldn't have children and like the quest stops with him unless he can find someone. There's so many things. Have you got a thought, Academic?
Yeah, the surrealness of like how kind of both simultaneously bland and unnatural the second part of the book that King sort of describes made me think that maybe Charlie is is a what's the word I'm looking for? An unreliable narrator. So uh, I think that the second part, I at points of it, I thought that maybe he was like actually injured and he's like in a coma because of his interaction with what's Christopher Polly, and maybe that's what this entire second half of the book was, right? But I think the whole second part of the book is supposed to be a muted, use the slight play on words, reflection of the first half of the book. Because I think one of like the overall themes of this entire book from beginning to end is the theme of like what is good, who is a good person, and most importantly, I think, is who is deserving of forgiveness. We see this at the very beginning with the goddamn bridge, right?
Yeah.
And like how at the very beginning we see Charlie's dad say, I don't really blame the truck driver that killed your mom. It's just a messed up situation all around. But then we see him dive into deep depths of despair and really just ruin his like 2-unit family, and then him climb out of that, and that whole process is forgiveness. And then Charlie going into Bowditch, who is once again like the person who may have been warped by the sundial at the end, and he's this crotchety, really reclusive and mean old person, and yet he goes into and he shows him love, even though from the outside, to most people who interact with him, he is unworthy and of love and being able to interact with. And I think that that's what King is trying to tie together from the beginning of the book, and that sort of ties over into the end. And that's where you see when Charlie gets upset and mad at Woody and Claudia, and like, why didn't you do this? You could have done this.
I know.
We see that played out again, right? So yeah, those are my thoughts. And then there's other things with like Darren's vial and all that I think aren't as necessary, but I do think that that whole process of him changing from the person who was not quite yet ready to be a person who is willing to provide the like supernatural like forgiveness. What I mean by that is like someone who's hurt you and someone seeing someone else cause lots of pain and still being able to forgive them. That I feel like that's kind of hard to do. And that's what that whole Darrens vial thing was for.
It's quite interesting because the first half of the book is all about him making a pact with God. Help my father. I want him to be okay. I will do good deeds to help my father. He didn't think anything about his father the second half of the book at all. That whole purpose, the reason that he helped Mr. Bowditch, the reason that he felt like, his actions mattered was because he made this deal. And he brought his dad in the last paragraph just to check it out, not say hi to anyone, and then plug the hole. I thought it was very strange that you had all of this set up and then it just went away. How
it felt like if the kids at the end of Lion the Witch in the Wardrobe broke the wardrobe as soon as they got back. That's what it felt like.
A little bit. And oh my God. And the whole I'm in love with Leah. She's like, I'm too old for you. And Eris is like, I'll fuck you. And he's like, sick. That was so bad. I thought that was so pointless. You've got this guy who had to prove himself a prince. What are all the fairy tales? You got to kiss her to wake her up. You have to save
His
her.
own actions convinced Leah to slash her own mouth open so she could scream at and finally talk to her brother. Like, what?
That just made no sense. Anyway, Kate, you made a really good point earlier. Nothing much happened in the first half, but it really sucked me in compared to the second half. King has a hard time sticking the landing. I would have given it a massive 5 out of 5 if I felt the same way in the second half than I did the first. I don't know what it was, but I would listen to the first half of this book, and even when I had to put my book away or stop listening to go about my life, it would linger. It would always just sit there. He somehow got under my skin, and Charlie's presence was felt. And I was so connected to...
Because, you know what I just realized? I just had a brainwave about it.
Let's go.
Was that the first half was all about Charlie just like, this is my life. This is how I felt about my dad. Here's my feelings about Mr. Bowditch. And there was a lot of just really good humanity with Charlie talking about the death of his mother and how it destroyed his father and the repairing of their relationship after his father got clean, and then him building this relationship with Mr. Bowditch, like all that stuff. There was a lot of feeling from Charlie. But in the second half, there wasn't a lot of feeling from him. He just kind of was sucked into the story, and he just became like the prince, who was like a cookie cutter character. And it essentially just became like
a series
him
of objectives
going through the motions.
Yep.
Yeah. And like Deep Maline was like 5 chapters that's like we could have had more of Charlie's feelings. And I think that would have really made it as good as the first half. Or him like, you know, bonding with Dora. Because even when we first got to the fantasy world, him bonding with Dora,
that was sweet.
Was really good. Yes. It's just because we were realizing it's like his feelings, that it's like, you know, the whole thing about him talking about her goodness shining through, and just like there was love there and friendship. And then as soon as he got to, you know, after the sundial, he just wasn't, he was a passenger in his own story. Yep. Whereas in the rest of the story, in the rest of the stuff that like me and you really loved, he was driving it.
Yes.
And then he was just like, the stuff that was boring was, you know, just a rote fairy tale.
You're 100% right. I was very connected with Charlie. I was identifying with him. I was listening to him. I felt like I was his friend, wanting to be there for him. Black Belt, you make a great comment. They talk about his reasons for helping Bowditch, but then they never went into why he wanted to save Empus. It feels like he helped Raider and then wanted to leave right away, and then went to prison, and all of a sudden is the promised prince and it's got a different purpose. You gave this a 3 out of 5. I'd love to get your thoughts on the book, on the first half versus second half. What was lacking? What was missing? What did work? Hit me.
Yeah. I originally gave it 4 out of 5 on Goodreads, but I think I'm going to go to 3. I really was sucked into the first half, as everybody was, but it just,
except
the whole world of Empus just felt, yeah.
What
the
did I
whole
do?
world of Empus just felt bland.
Yeah. And it's supposed to be a fairy tale with a palace, with history. It's supposed to be a magical world suffering through a curse. It's supposed to have these, you know, monarch butterflies that are symbolic for something. It's supposed to be so uniquely different. And it just didn't have any of that.
Yeah, there was just no depth to anything. And like what little we got of that was good, but like I liked Dora and like Claudia and Woody, but then Leah had like no personality except being like cursed, and then she saves the day in the end. All of a sudden she's like the strong heroine, and I don't know, it just like didn't make sense, and I don't know. There was just so much more that I feel like that the story could have been in the second half, and like I just feel like this about it. Like it stinks. I don't know.
Colleen, where are you at with this one? How are you feeling about the book? What did you give it out of 5? How did you like it?
Well, I gave it a 4, but listening to you guys make all these points, I'm really agreeing more and more with a lot of what you're saying. There are a few things, like when he was in Deep Maline, I think besides becoming the prince, he began to see more of what some of the people were suffering, especially when he met Percy and realized what Percy was willing. Percy was really more willing to put himself on the line than the royals had been during the entire time of the curse. And I can't help but think that that was some motivation for Charlie to want to save Empus. I think I wish they'd maybe gone into it a little bit more, but meeting the woman with the dead baby, I think also had an impact on it. And while he wanted to just hurry up and get out of there, I think it was kind of an accumulation of things that made him feel more responsible for Empus. And he's still atoning for all of these sins, like throwing the crippled man's crutches into the duck pond.
It's I mean, you're hitting on something with another discovery that we'd made, which was checking in with Charlie's emotions all the way through it. You provided incredibly good examples of moments that could have, or did, we're guessing, challenge and spur on Charlie to save the day, to, you know, help these people. When we have been so in tune with what he's thinking and feeling the entire time, and then we go through motions and objectives without that checking in that we were used to, I feel that's what made everything fall incredibly flat. And I think that Stephen King has showed us that he's incredible at doing that. So to lose that when we get to Empus, I think that hurts the story so much. I would love to have had that same almost voyeuristic kind of approach where we are deeply connected and understanding of Charlie's motives, why he's doing the things that he's doing, how he's emotionally affected by this, piecing together what he knew about A.B., Bowditch, his presence lingering in this town, him seeing the impact, but also that Bowditch at the end of the day failed. He was not able to save them. And then things that happened in the first half of the book start making a lot more sense because we've gotten the whys behind the what. You know, the what was really established, who Bowditch was, how he's got all this money, why he's cranky. And he kind of just, all he did was say, only cowards give gifts. You know, that was kind of like the through line. But I wanted to have like more of the peeling back and understanding and learning of Empus that made Bowditch make more sense as well. It would have also been cool if by possessing his will, like being the heir to Bowditch, that actually binded him to the fate of Empus. Like if there was a way through magic or this will that Charlie then also inherited needing to sort of save Empus and that resting on him because Bowditch wasn't able to do it. He cowered it out. He chose to not, or he was incapable of doing it, whatever that was. Yeah, really, really interesting conversations. I'm reading some of the comments here as well. Kate, you said that when King hits, he hits so well. I do love his writing style, but he doesn't always stick the landing with his endings. His recent book, Holly, was really good, though. It had a very tight narrative. And earlier you said we should have read Misery for October, but no one listens to you. And that's what the book we should have done instead. You were right. I agree. There you go. Black Belt said a lot of these connections with Bowditch and the consequences he faced from his time in Empus were glossed over, but could have been really interesting if pursued more. We are on the same page with that. Aaron says, I would have also liked to have had something that King did a lot in his early books and doing flashbacks of the characters like he did in It, and how the consequences of those particular moments carry forward to the present. He's like, I'm a scholar. I work at uni in fiction and fantasy and myth and lore. How have you helped people? How has that helped Empus? It's just so shoehorned in. With that in mind, I would have liked at least sections of Bowditch's time in that world and his choices being made and not seen second and third hand. Thank you. It would have given his demise more power as well. Colleen says, it seems like the people in prison ended up being more willing to make a difference than the royals had for all that time. I think the fact that Leah got distracted tending to the geese and Woody was going about his business and Claudia's kind of like, well, as long as the wolfies aren't getting me. That was so glossed over until he had this spurt of emotion that honestly kind of caught me off guard. Because I was like, now you give a shit, Charlie? Now this is impacting you? You're about to leave? And as a final word, you're getting mad at something that should have been a conversation before all of this went down? And then he was just like, well, I'm leaving anyway, so I'm going to gloss it all over and, leave on a happy ending. It's like, then why have the conversation at all? Kate says, usually the chaff are the ones that always want to make the difference. The ones at the top of the pyramid never want to make changes. And it would have been cool to see that.
How they got to the top of the pyramid in the first place.
Yeah. But it would have been cool to see that the blood's on their hands because they didn't give a shit, because they could have done more and they opted out of it. Nick says they talked about his reasons for helping Bowditch, but then never went into why. Oh, yeah, I said this one earlier. It was so important. And I really do think that the narrative style of first person completely changes first to second half. Robin says, this is 2 books in a row where we drink for every make it make sense. And it is really humbling that we as a book club are asking Mr. Stephen King to make it make sense. Hindsight, hell of a drug. Star Pilot says, yeah, fundamentally, I'm not likely to be happy with a story where there's magic and they decided to give up. Just give it up. It didn't sit well with me. Aaron says, after Radar and the Sundial, he was no longer in control of the story and became a forced character in a narrative that was no longer his to control. But that was a choice in the writing. That's just something that happened to happen in terms of storytelling, but shouldn't have happened. He's our protagonist. If he's not in charge of the narrative of the story that he's telling.
What I was trying to say is that he basically became shoehorned into the promised prince role that wasn't his decision to make. It was just literally forced on him, and he just went with it because eventually he became empathetic to everything around him, so he decided to make a choice and stick with it. But he didn't. But his whole goal there was just to basically say, I want to visit the world because I was curious, and I want to help my dog. That was it, and he succeeded, and the only reason he got stuck there is because a little shithead Peterkin decided to erase all those markers and get him lost. So because of these little tiny moments, he's now forced into somebody else's, goals, which is Leah, Woody, the Royals, and everybody in Empus, saving them their land.
Labyrinth did it better. Sorry, Peterkin, take a seat. The Labyrinth did markings, turned over, so much better.
Not that way. That'll take you right back to the castle.
Take you straight to the castle.
I think I have very interestingly odd taste because I tend to dislike a lot of books you all like, and maybe I'm biased because I love Stephen King, but I'm like at least a 4.5, I think.
Okay, tell us what you love.
So I think, and let me add one more thing. I think part of it is, you're right, he probably didn't fully stick the landing, and I think a lot of what I feel like, I won't say unfair, but I'll say a lot of the points, the criticisms you're making could easily be applied to other books. But overall, those other books, things like inconsistency or things that are redeemed or so on, those could be applied to almost every book we've read. But often if you have this overall I think Stephen King's biggest weakness, I guess, is the Magic Box series. He does too good of a job of setting up the mysteries in the first half, and the payoff isn't quite as good as what you're hoping for at the beginning, which I don't fully disagree with, right? Although I was I think there were parts that I also didn't have nearly as much of a complaint with the pacing of this, but I'm used to the way Stephen King writes, right? Like I've read so I think other writer, and there were some clangers in this book too. There were things that are a little off. Like I don't know if I was as put off maybe because I think Stephen King, I think he met a very high level of difficulty, and I think I know what he's doing, and I think I agree he wasn't fully succeeding. He was trying to meld three or four different themes, and obviously the fairy tales is one big part of it. The other theme of taking like someone said redemption, but the idea of growing up with a like overcoming tragedy, right? Because the curse is like one big metaphor for what he went through with his mom and alcoholism, right? And then that gets basically allegorified, right? And then he's trying to retell both sort of traditional fairy tales and Cthulhu and this like H.P. Lovecraft, right? This is a very heavy theme, right? And he mixes in sort of Bradbury. And then he's finally constrained by building up the world and then giving it a happy ending, right? I think he wanted to give it a happy ending because he ultimately thinks that people can be redeemed in their personal lives. I think, by the way, it totally makes sense that he sealed up the well. That was almost cliche that I was expecting, because what? Like he's trying to show like the fairy tale land that's finally rescued is a completely different mystical plane from the real world. You can't have like the CIA and the NSA and people like, you know, like Chevron or Starbucks go and like take over that world, right? It's just not possible, right? So I get why he sealed it. So I think he does like an 85% good job mixing those together, but it is a very high level of difficulty, and I could see why. You know, like I with the tournament, I don't think that was wasted time, except I do think it was somewhat cliched, right? He was trying to invoke like that trope of the traditional King's tournament or gladiator match. And he does okay. I agree that he could have done better at that. But I think he faced the big challenge of like, okay, he's stuck in the world. What do the evil people do in the world, right? That's actually a hard thing. Do they just go, mwahaha? Do they torture everybody all the time? Do they just sacrifice babies all day? Well, it turns out that one way to do it is to like have a cruel tournament where you're killing the line of the people, right? But it does feel tropey. So I think but again, I'm very biased towards Stephen King, and I've read a lot. So I like, you know, I don't think mine is at all a nearly objective opinion. So I would have been pretty primed to like it anyways. For better or worse, you can take that with a huge grain of salt, you know.
I needed you to talk for 30 more seconds so I can finish my mouthful.
Oh, sorry, I don't want to
thoughts?
talk too much. And you begged of me. You're doing
Academic,
that.
you've got thoughts? Oh, you're still muted, love.
Right.
But academic, you were about to yes and all over that, right? No. All right, I still can't hear you. What happened? You don't have your muted button. Oh, that's it. I heard it.
Yeah, so I just switched to my laptop's microphone. Apologies for any sound difference. That's horrible. No, yeah, I totally yes, and this is my first Stephen King book, so I don't have the same biases coming into it, and I approached it once we got to the fairy tale portion of it. I realized, oh, he's like really leaning into the allegory, and I didn't realize that was something that Stephen King did before, but it did feel a little like Tolkien / Lewis-esque, and I was digging like the deeper things that I think he was trying to dig out of it. I did like I think you've nailed you hit the nail on the head when you said that the tournament part was the reason why I felt bad about it, was that it was cliche. But yeah, I do think the entire point of it was to show that for what little beauty, which I think the whole people are a metaphorical stand-in for, that exists in the world. The people that were truly evil were trying to snuff it out, right? And so like that was like that entire prison theme was Charlie growing more and more empathetic for the situation that he is in, and recognizing and coming to grips with the fact that there was real evil that needed to be fought, right? So
Maude, are you now? I think you might be muted now.
I'm muted now.
It's a bug.
You did the same bug.
Hey, it's what all the cool kids are doing, right? Oh, Disco Cobra just gifted 5 subs to the community. Wizard Tracker got one. Shartful Dodger. That is just beautiful. Shartful Dodger. Felicia, it's me, Bondo, and City121, you all got gifted a sub, and Disco Cobra also resubscribed for 30 months, saying, Mood Gert, what's up? If you got gifted a sub just now, make sure you thank Disco Cobra 2013 in the comments, and then enjoy the newer emotes. So what I was saying before, while I was muted, was I want to do a bit of a what if? What if? Like, let's just throw some what ifs out there. What if Stephen King did this instead? We're kind of like rewriting some of the book. I have no qualms with that. Like, let's just throw some ideas in the hat. Toaster Poster has one. It would have been nice if Claudia went to jail with Charlie. So let's just say they were both captured. Then you use that time in the prison to learn more about Claudia and to give Charlie a personal reason to help her and the kingdom. Seeing her suffer at the same time, understanding more of the exposition whilst also going through prison. There you go. Academic, though, says, I think that the prison was where Charlie became more empathetic to Empus. In the depths of prison was where he grew to know the initially hostile, bereft prisoners and Hamie. I don't think Charlie helped for Claudia's sake. I think Charlie helped for the people in prison's sake. But if you actually focus on the royals, which is the whole point of it, that would have made more sense. You could have actually told this story incredibly succinctly with none of the prisoners. If you didn't, if you cut that whole thing out. Yes, Darian, you've got thoughts.
Yeah, I have a couple.
Let's go.
One thing, the entire thing of Charlie like becoming the prince, and like as Aaron said, like, you know, he became a passenger of the story in the second half.
Yeah.
It reminds me of this comic book called Once and Future. I don't know if anybody is aware of it, but it's like characters from myth and legend appear in the modern day, and the people who are interacting with them also become aspects of the story. So like they have to become King Arthur, they have to become the Lancelot to progress the story. It's very weird, but it reminded me of that. I think Stephen King needed maybe about 2 or 3 passes again of the story before he published this.
Interesting.
Because it really needed some tightening up. But I'm saying what he was trying to do was try to subvert, but at the same time reference a lot of different story tropes and fairy tales. But he's not like how George Martin writes or how Rothfuss writes, where they know how to subvert really well. I think it's like, I don't know if this is his first stab at it, but like you see it, but it's not done well. That's why I gave the book like a 3 out of 5.
Mm-hmm.
One thing also was some things happen in the book that just I don't know if it's because I listened to it. It didn't make sense to me, like the entire thing of Rumpelstiltskin at the end and him saying Gog Magog to you know, send him away, banish him. I don't think that was fully explained.
Also, because Gog Magog is an actual giant. Whereas the thing that came out of the well was more
Cthulhu.
like... Yeah. No. I was trying to remember. It starts with B. It's like a Balrog-esque type thing.
Chernobog.
Chernobog.
From Fantasia.
Oh, yes.
Fantasia.
Yeah. So it was like Gog Magog, Chernobog. Did he just get him confused? Because I started looking up Gog Magog. Oh my god.
He's a giant, Irish giant.
Yeah. Chernobog is like a
Slavic god.
Like a winged beast.
Slavic.
Yeah.
Well, he's basically, he's like sometimes depicted as that, sometimes like as a more like just darker demon-like figure, and like a
Peter Stormare on American Gods.
Yeah, but in American Gods they also had like the his like opposites, like his brother or something like that was like sort of like the light version of him, sort of thing. So it's like
yeah.
He was meant to like represent like the dark forces kind of thing.
Yeah.
I'm pulling up an image of Gog Magog and Chernobog, just so we can see him. Has anyone got the book in front of them that could go to like the last sort of chapters where we see him and to read Gog Magog's description? Because it's oily, it's got the wings, and it's got eerie golden eyes. Now, which one looks like Gog Magog with that description? Can you see in the stream? I know that you're watching on thing and I'm just pointing to the air. But if you have the actual stream open, I've got some images in here. Actually, Tim, I might have to. It's very funny.
It's fine. I was just going to say, is it Gog Magog the name of the giant from Jack and the Beanstalk, which they reference at the first half
That's
of the
what I
book,
was
which
just
was
typing.
useless.
It
until
is,
now.
but
I didn't understand.
Yeah, Gog Magog is the name, but it's also drawn from the. It also has much deeper roots. It's drawn from the 2 cities that are destroyed by Yahweh in the Old Testament, that are filled with the wicked, like it's got, I think, right? Gog and Magog, which are about like they're Sodom and Gomorrah.
I thought,
it's for Armageddon or something like that. Yeah.
Gog and Magog were from the Book of Revelations.
Yeah.
Oh, Revelation. Thank you. Revelation.
Sodom
Sorry,
and Gomorrah were the
Old
fire
Testament.
and brimstone in the Old
Yeah,
Testament.
Sorry, I thought they were all 4 of them, but you're right. Only Sodom and Gomorrah in the Old Testament. Gog and Magog's in the Revelations. You're right.
I found the beginning of the description. It says, a bubble of alien flesh rose from the well. Huge golden eyes stared at us from what was otherwise no face at all. There was a scraping, grinding sound, and a second thorn-covered wing emerged. It gave an exploratory flap, and another gust of putrescent air struck me. Let's see. It continued to emerge, now flapping both of its thorny wings. Strings of some noisome fluid sprayed from it. The light from the shattered moons had continued to fade, and I could barely see them. Yeah, I think it might have been some kind of dragon, but not the sort seen in any book of fairy tales. It was from beyond my world. Leah's too, the dark well opened into some other universe beyond all human comprehension, and Leah's command did nothing to stop it.
I reckon you got that mixed up.
Yeah.
Or
he's describing it the way Lovecraft would have described the old one.
okay.
Yeah.
What's the old Gog Magog? Send me a picture of that in the Discord and I'll pop it up. Show
It's a tall guy.
Just a tall guy.
Yeah.
Right. Huh. So see what I mean? I thought that was a bit interesting. And it was like a little uncomfortable to listen to. I denounce you, Gog Magog, Gog Magog, Gog Magog, Gog Magog. I was like,
yeah, I rushed through that a little bit.
Yeah.
Explanation for that, and you know how it was like the Rumpel Bridge, Peterkin, Chris Polly, like that didn't all come together well for me. Like there was some gaps in there that just didn't make sense.
Like they did establish it, like, you know, names have power, and like, you know, saying the name of something gives you power over it. I get that. That's a classic trope and it's good.
Yeah.
They just like didn't do anything to establish it until like just, oh right, this final moment I just realized there's the solution. It just felt forced, is what it felt like. Like it's a good trope to have and it's a good explanation, but it just felt forced to just have it rushed into as the solution to our problem here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Kate, you're just reminding me why I have a very interesting relationship with religion, aka none at all. You also said he was doing both Jack and the Beanstalk and Rumpelstiltskin. Gog Magog was mentioned because of the Jack and the Beanstalk thing where Mr. Bowditch stole gold after going up the beanstalk / down the well. I'm going to scroll up because there were a bunch of comments. And then, Jimmy, I want to hear from you because I haven't heard about it. But first, before we get your review, Star Pilot 6 says, like, how long had it been since Bowditch came down there? Nobody bothered to erase any of the marks. None of the exiled royals did anything of note. Bowditch apparently dropped off the gifts after Eldon took over, but it feels like nothing in Empis significantly changed when someone from our world wasn't visiting. Thoughts? Zelda's snoring so loudly, but I do think I heard someone go, ah. No? Maybe it was Zelda. Oh, Adam Vision said, I love your sweater. Thank you. There's that.
So, question.
Yes.
Did the fall of the royals happen while Bowditch was visiting, or did it happen before he ever came to Empis? I wasn't clear on that myself.
Hold on, one more time.
The fall of the royals on Empis, the fall of the family, did that happen during Bowditch's visits over the last 100 years, or did that happen before? Because that I wasn't really clear on that.
I'm not either. Does anyone have that answer? That's not good.
it seems like, yeah, Empus had fallen after Bowditch had left.
Right? I'm not sure about that, because some of the things he had given them to help them seemed like they might have been helpful for them after they had already been exiled.
Claudia and the Wolfies were at that house.
A battery, a notepad.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was thinking maybe he was there kind of at right after it had fallen, and then got out of Dodge as quick as he could, so he didn't get caught up in whatever it was. Exactly.
Now that we're going through other things that we're not super sure of, Colleen also asked previously in the comments, I didn't understand the significance of the 32 or the 64 contestants. Anyone? Because I don't either.
Oh no, they needed so the contestants, they just needed a bracket number, right? So 8, 60, it has to be divisible, it has to be power of 2, right? So that you can have a bracket. And he went to 32 because it just took too long to even get to 30 something.
Okay.
So they cut it 64 to 32. And that's it. And so
again, if you didn't have the bracket in that fight, it wouldn't have suffered the book, I don't think.
That's a sports thing, brackets.
It is, but it's called a fair one, right? So
because it has to be divisible, right? Because then no one's getting
like
a bye. Because I mean, if he really wanted to push to have the tournament, someone could have gotten a bye, but they didn't want that because they wanted all the bloodshed, right?
Right, they wanted the bloodshed, but they also were invoking like some sort of mystic, like the fair one is a legendary kind of thing, right? So they wanted to, and I guess as a fairy tale, they have to fit the constraints of that.
Was Petra a winner of the fair one, and that's why she got her rank and title there? What was her story?
She was just a great aunt. I think she rode the sundial. She's a great aunt that rode the sundial.
Yeah, she rode
She rode it, but she was Leah's great aunt.
Right.
Also,
so that's...
she's a gold digger.
Yeah. Okay.
But actually, now that I think about it, when you're bringing up the whole thing with like the term and the bracket and the blood sport and stuff like that, it could have also just been a blood sacrifice to help with the opening of the well.
Yeah, because magic is also, numbers are powerful in magic. So
they could have done that, but they just didn't. So I mean, that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, and just like it was probably there, but it's like it was never explained because the way it's like it's set up with the narrative from Charlie's perspective is like he gets all this information while he's in prison, but he doesn't actually expound further. It's like, oh yeah, I learned a bunch of things. That's it. Doesn't really explain and expound on what exactly he learned. He just gave us like the cliff notes of what he thought was relevant to tell whoever's reading his little memoir, but to hold a lot of stuff back.
So I was trying to ask a question, but my mic wasn't working, and I asked this before. Who actually read it? Who did audiobook? Because it sounded like maybe the audiobook wasn't the greatest.
He won best audio narrator for 2022, I think.
I enjoyed the audiobook version. We were robbed of the artwork from the book, though.
I'm just curious who actually read the text and who did the audiobook. Just that's fine.
I did the text. Yeah.
I read the text.
Audiobook.
Audio for me. Audio.
Yeah.
Audiobook.
We were robbed of the artwork that the book had.
Yeah,
it sounds like
he might. Cool artwork.
Yeah, I wonder if it did better as a book, especially like parts of it that might have clanged audio. Just the thought.
I don't know. I liked it. So I'm on the audiobook team and I liked it. So I'm not sure if that's what it was. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm on the Reddit and didn't really like it. So
it's my second ever DNF, and I read the paperback. So.
And you also
you need to Kindle it.
The voice acting was good.
Your other DNF was tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow, though.
That is true. That is very true.
I don't know if I should. I didn't even get through a quarter of Fourth Wing, but I will. I will eventually.
We're going to do the bonus book next month. It comes out on the 7th of November. I'm giving you 2 weeks to just absolutely fly through it, pun intended. And then we're going to do, I think, a stream to discuss it. Yay. I'll try and see if I can get a friend or a book reader guest to talk about it as well because we ripped it a new one last time. We got a question. We got someone help. Stargirl says, who was Charlie writing the story to? Was it a part of his curriculum? Now that he's a professor at a uni, who's he writing the story to? Radar?
I honestly believe it's like a memoir.
The fact that we are asking is a problem.
Unreliable narrator. I've been saying this whole time.
Last Stephen King bias thing. Stephen King's characters are almost always either writers or allegories for writers for what they're going through. Like a huge percentage of them, which is why it's creepy.
Like I could have bet money that Charlie was going to be a writer at the end of this book.
So, I wanted it to be for his son, his child or daughter, because he wasn't on the sundial and he could procreate. And that royal blood does be bumping.
I mean,
royals are horny.
Royals are horny. I kind of told this like last time, but Dark Tower, he literally puts himself into his own story in Dark Tower in the later books in that series.
So. And Charlie's a different royal. He doesn't have the same bumping horny blood.
He is a temporary royal.
But yeah, that's the other thing. How does that even make sense? It would have made more sense if like he truly was no, that doesn't. I don't know. You're the chosen one.
A funny thing I noticed in the second half was Charlie was talking about reading the Song of Ice and Fire books in George Martin, and then they used the term "the prince that was promised" to describe Charlie, and I mean that was a little bit too on the nose.
Yeah, I agree.
I just thought of one last thing.
Yeah.
Which is that I think, whoever bet it's a writer, I think that world of fantasy, and given how King always writes about writers, as I said, I think that whole is an entire allegory about imagination and becoming a writer. Because remember, before that, he was going to be like this football star, jock, normal person, right? That world is his entire imagination, right? And he becomes a writer because he dips into it, I think. Right? And he has to keep it for himself, maybe. Because that's the end of this. Because he totally changed his life, goes into English, which is not what he was going to do originally.
Yeah. But it's only 9 years later. He was 17, so he's 26 now. That's not happily ever after. That's just getting started. Personally.
Yeah, but he's got all that gold. He's fine.
The door knocker was $83,000 or something, wasn't it?
Yep.
That's not even a house deposit in LA.
Well, he's got the whole bucket of gold. He's got the bucket of gold.
He has an acre of land.
And that's also another important part of becoming a writer, just having a ton of inherited money.
Yeah.
Does this book, Toaster Poster, does this book fit into the larger multiverse of Stephen King? We've got some answers. Nick says it's definitely connected to the world of the Dark Tower, as most of King's work is. Star Pilot 6 says, I mean, kinda, because the larger multiverse is basically infinite, so I don't see why it wouldn't fit in it at least. But there's not really explicit connections that I saw, aside from some references to the fiction itself. And then Lisa says, yeah, the whole book I was thinking he was writing it for his son or his daughter so they could take on protecting the well after he was gone, but then they closed it, and I was like, whoop! Never mind. And Robin, you were saying, why would you block that well and not the one where Gogmagog's just having a little snoozy? So you're going to set him back on Empus however many decades later, but you actually can't go down and fix the problem that you temporarily solved. So how is that a happy ending? I ain't happy about it at all. Another comment.
Actually,
yes, Aaron.
Leah did explain, like, there was like two paths that she knew: the one through the closet with the clothes, and the other path that her brother took, Flight Killer. But those are like the only ones they know, but not the other ones, because apparently there's tons of different ways to get down there.
And also the moons have to kiss or get into an eclipse.
That's just to open the well, but to get there was
didn't they?
Yeah. So the well might be closed a bit, but that doesn't mean somebody couldn't force it open somehow.
So it only gets opened
it's not going to open on its own.
Also, if there's any tide, both moons exploding, the science behind that would fuck up that Empus so bad.
Also, wouldn't it be like raining down asteroids and meteorites and debris like nonstop? It's gonna become an apocalypse.
Good thing Sailor Moon doesn't exist in that world. She'd be crying so much.
Someone else commented
Magic.
way earlier saying it would have been really cool, and let me know if it was you who said it. It would have been really cool to see a little bit more connection between sort of like we've established Earth and then Empus, but also Empus and this third place. Like, what if there was a little bit more crossover there as well? It was kind of, again, like this third vessel, this third planet, world, whatever, was shoehorned in at the last moment too. You said that, Darian?
No, it wasn't me. But
You
it
said
it was like lacking. Like, they could have had I came across this book that had like some lore about portals or something or other worlds. There's a lot of stuff left off the table that could have helped this book a lot.
Jimmy.
I said that I thought it'd be better if they had connected
It was you,
the
Robin.
two worlds.
Yeah.
Because I thought that Flight Killer was gonna find out about Charlie's well, and then he was gonna try to go there to get more whole ones.
And then that would bring it back to saving his father, which was the first part of the book about the most important thing.
And that would make us invested in why Charlie is trying to stop him.
Would that work though? Because like, if Flight Killer went to Charlie's world, wouldn't he just die because he's not compatible with our world?
Yeah.
That was another thing.
Said like anything from there can't survive here.
That's plot armor.
Unless of course that's just like the
compel them
cockroaches.
to come down.
Did you ever like try it with actual people, or was it just the cockroaches that just
the
don't like
cockroaches,
which we never saw again?
Right.
So that's a massive plot hole as well.
We never
because Bowditch, he dies of a heart attack shooting a cockroach that was gonna just die anyway because it was in our world.
I was gonna say something about the Dark Materials, his Dark
sense.
Materials book, but that's a spoiler. I don't know if we're
Okay,
gonna get
no
to that or not.
spoilers, no spoilers.
Yeah.
I'll not.
I have a question about the ending.
Yeah.
Do you think the ending would have been better if Leah died killing Eldon? Like if Leah died to kill Flight Killer, like, do you think that would have been a better ending than what we got of her just becoming queen?
You know what? I would have liked to have seen, I know he's not really a romance guy at all, but the trope of like the true kiss, like that is such a big part of traditional fairy tales. Sleeping Beauty needs to be woken with a kiss. Snow White needed to be woken from poison with a kiss. The fact that Leah was supposed to be awoken with a kiss, but she doesn't have a mouth, that would have been really interesting. Instead of, I'm too old for you. All I got was, I'm too old for you. And then Eris was like, sympathy fuck? And he's like, yes. Like, I'm so sorry, but that part of the book was just like...
I mean, don't you kind of like it?
No.
But isn't it a little subversive that Leah, in some sense, really saves herself? Like, her true kiss is she finds her own mouth by tearing it open. So that, in some sense, is actually very feminist. And then, Charlie gets the reward of losing his virginity randomly. Fine.
Leo was like,
I lost a lot of things in there, including my virginity. What's up? High five. Psh, yeah. Like, God damn it. Jimmy, have you got your notes? I'd love to hear your thoughts, your rating. Give me a little spiel about Fairy Tale.
Sure. I'll give you a spiel.
Yeah.
Now, I would say I was reading the second half pretty much when I couldn't sleep at TwitchCon, because I don't really sleep very well when I'm on travel.
Is that because it's so quiet in hotel rooms? I have to put white brown noise. I have to put an app on to put sound on to make me fall asleep.
Oh, no, it was very quiet where I was.
Yeah, no, too quiet. I can't sleep when it's too quiet. I need the hum of a fan.
Oh, I'm with you on that one, growing up in a city. Anyway, that's irrelevant.
No, I'd rather talk about that than the book. Just quietly. No, kidding. I'm kidding.
No, it's true, because when I live in New York City, so I always hear my neighbors yelling, dogs barking.
Oh, yeah.
Police
Cacophony
cars,
of sound.
People get shot.
Exactly, so that's just how it is. If there's no noise, I'm like, what's going on here? Did someone get abducted by aliens? Anyway, but the book itself, much like y'all, I like the beginning of the book. The second part of the book was interesting. Now, I'm under the understanding that Stephen King tends to write a lot about himself and his father's issues in a lot of his books. So it could have been more of a therapy for Stephen King, working through his problems kind of thing, more than, like, bits and pieces being put together or whatever. Again, this is just hearsay. But I think it was interesting that the way that he was trying to go with it, because I was thinking to myself, like, someone jokingly said there was no fairies in fairy tale. And I was like, yeah, I was expecting more of a twist, like, for example, like when, like I wrote in the chat, what if Charlie went into the portal and he was actually disenchanted and thinking that it was another world, but it was more of just of a prison world, and that people would keep them on lockdown until they proved their worth. Kind of like that book that Hector loved so much, the Mars book.
Oh,
yeah,
John Carter.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like John Carter in a way. Because otherwise, generally, like, again, I wasn't thoroughly invested in the book, like you said earlier, about how, like, it was very interesting how we were very familiar with Charlie and how he did, and then all of a sudden it was just like a complete, like, 180 kind of thing. But again, I'm no expert in writing, and I know Stephen King churns out a lot of books on a daily basis, so it's just one of those things.
Well, Black Belt seems to think that the way that this book played out made it seem like King was chugging along, writing like normal, then the publishing deadline came up way too fast, so he didn't have to give the second half any depth and just phoned it in.
That's very, very possible. Because, I would think, like, the dog's name is Radar, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
And so I think it would have been cool. This is just another idea. Is that when they went into the portal, and then after he went into the sundial, that Radar had turned into like a human, half like an Anubis in a way.
Oh, cool. Okay.
That would have been cool. And then he saved the day, kind of like a thing. But that's just me spitballing.
Yeah, no, we were talking about what would you do? How would you change it? What if? There's a what if.
Because generally I wasn't that thoroughly interested in the story on the second half.
Yeah.
But I do appreciate that, there was an attempt made.
An attempt was made, Stephen King.
Yes, so like 3.8, just a little bit below 4, but not above a 4, because it's an interesting story, but it fell short a little bit.
Yeah,
that's
okay. Star Pilot 6 earlier said, I kind of like the Leah turning down Charlie and then the sympathy boink. But like, it was the only way that the book felt like it subverted fairy tales. And so then that felt so out of place. Agree. Star Pilot also said, I feel like Stephen King would be given an extension of a deadline. So I guess it was more likely that he just kind of ran out of steam. You could feel the love the first half of the book. He was enjoying it. And then after that, it started to become a slog and he just rushed through to finish it. The first half definitely seemed like it was catharsis for him. He was going through, processing his trauma. He was the kind of person, that was using Charlie as a character to forgive himself in a way for what his father had done to Charlie. But you're right. As soon as it went into like mystical, if he'd kind of anchored himself in the recovery or what he was trying to kind of use throughout, because that was the best part of the book, I think, the first half. Ricky Rocket, thanks so much for the follow. Welcome to Maude's Book Club. We read Stephen King's Fairy Tale, and it was a fairly average tale. I think we're giving it like a 3.5.
One thing about the timing of the writing, is he wrote it all during COVID, so maybe he went through.
We all got a bit fucking over COVID, didn't we?
Yeah, it was. If you look at the end, it's November 2020 until sometime in 2022. So he might have been going stir crazy. It was like actually to finish.
Yeah, Toast Person makes a really great point as well. Nobody said don't strain your pooper in the second half of the book. That's why it wasn't as good. If we're all good, we've got half an hour left. Are we kind of happy to move past Fairy Tale? Because Kate just recommended a really cool book that we should have read instead, not just Misery, but this new book. So I kind of wouldn't mind doing a Get Wrecked, Let's Get Some Wrecks happening. If you've got any book recommendations, let's check in with what everyone is reading or listening to. Hold on. Bing. I would like to hear from everyone. I can make currently reading a bit. I can make currently reading a bit bigger. Swing. Yay. What is everyone currently reading? Kate, start off. I want to hear. Hold on. Darren. Darren, you're here. Did you read it?
I did, yes.
I'd love to hear your thoughts.
I think I probably liked it more than it sounds like the majority of the group. I think I put it at a 4 out of 5, but I definitely think there were quite a few things at the end that were sort of wrapped up in rather quick succession. I thought the dealing with the High Lord, it was kind of the main villain that we actually got any sort of semblance of getting to know, other than just, oh, there's a far off face, and then just sort of his demise I found a little unsatisfying. It was a little bit of the Lord of the Rings with the eagles. It's like, oh, here comes
the rats,
the snab, and he wishes them, and then he's dead. So, but other than that, I found it satisfying, and I enjoyed it overall.
Okay. Some of the big problems, because I know that you came a little bit later, you join us once your work day is done. So there's a couple of things that we, just to recap, didn't really love. The first half of the book we really loved because we felt connected to Charlie. He was sharing his emotions throughout everything, even though it was a little bit more mundane in terms of what was going on, a little bit slice of life. The way that Charlie kept checking in with the whys of everything that was happening really felt like Charlie was sort of with us. I felt that, like, even though I was not reading the book, he was lingering. Like, there was a real sense of who he was. And then, of course, when he went into Empus, he ended up getting hijacked by the plot. So we stopped getting the why he was doing anything. We stopped getting any sort of emotional check-in with him. We didn't really necessarily learn his motivation, his motives with it all. Radar got fixed. He's not sparing a thought for his dad. And then I think that change in how it was written really affected the second half of the book, and we kind of all thought, the prison didn't really need to happen. It could have been condensed. That fight, the tournament, was a little bit redundant in terms of what was going on. We didn't really get enough about the Royals. There was a lot of blood on their hands because Leah and Woody wouldn't really take any action for anything. Leah kind of checked out as well. We were sort of brainstorming and hypothesizing what it would have looked like, or what some of the things could have been done to make it seem a little bit more important. And that's just reinvigorating the motivation behind it all. It just felt like two very, very different books. And the part where nothing really happened was more exciting. And that's saying a lot. So there you go.
We got a lot of, I think in his time in the prison, there was a little bit of getting to know a bit more about what Charlie did during his dark time with when his father was drunk. So we got to see a bit. He described a few more things that he did with Birdie Bird, like how he called in a bomb threat and did some other things, and then also the stealing of the crutches.
Yeah, but that was like right at the end with Leah, though.
That part was right at the end. It was a little bit, I think, of him maybe trying to atone for some of those things, some of the anger that he did, and it's like, well, maybe I can help out these people a little bit to try to atone for some of his stuff that he did as a kid.
We're also kind of debunking the whole, he was the promised prince, and all that meant was that his hair changed color, so he was just he Super Saiyan, and that was it.
He was more of a convenient prince because he was just somebody who could actually do what they can't.
Yeah, so there we go. Now we're going to talk about, because we're kind of done with that. Now we're going to talk about what books you've been reading, what books you want to recommend. Kate, I'm throwing over to you. This Alice in Wonderland-esque type book. Tell me all about it, please.
So it's a novella called Deeper Than Hell by Joshua Millikan. I'm not sure how it's pronounced. I got recommended it at a local bookstore because it's from an indie horror publisher. It is essentially like a dark Alice in Wonderland sort of thing, but throwing in a lot of those kind of like Hollow Earth, Roswell alien government cover-up conspiracy theories. It takes place in there's like the undercity of Las Vegas, and the main character is a heroin addict who kind of lives in those tunnels under the city, and his buddy tells him about this like Xanadu kind of place that's in the center of the earth. And they end up like running down there and keep going down like these layers and layers and layers of, you know, insanity until it's just like keeps going deeper and deeper and deeper into the center of the earth with all these kind of like conspiracy theory things. But it's like
that's cool,
very kind of trippy and like dreamy because of like just the writing style, but also because of like the, you know, him being like high at the time. And it was just really, really interesting. And it's kind of funny that I was like reading that one at the same time, just because.
And it was doing it better.
Because it felt like a dark horror fairy tale story.
What's the title one more time?
It's called Deeper Than Hell by Joshua Milliken.
Okay. What else are you reading?
Right now I am reading Heart-Shaped Box by Joe Hill, who is Stephen King's son.
Hold on. Aaron, you've been trying to get us to read Joe Hill. Okay. Yeah. Well, let us know how it is and if we should read a bit of Joe Hill. Joe Hill does Nosferatu?
Yeah, which I actually like better than this book. Okay. I like Nosferatu a lot more, but this one's pretty good.
All right. Nosferatu. Star Pilot 6 says, I'm reading Inhibitor Phase by Alistair Reynolds, hard science fiction, and A Broken Darkness by Premi Mohammed, second book of an actionary Lovecraftian adventure series. Toaster Poster is listening to MCU, The Reign of Marvel Studios. I like hearing about the world building of the MCU and the new Marvel method of telling stories on the big screen. Who else has got a currently reading or a rec? Aaron?
So kind of sticking with a better version of a fairy tale type story. It's not a more recent one. This is a kind of an old series. It's called The Magic Kingdom of Landover. It's by Terry Brooks. He did the Shannara books as well. This is kind of like a different series altogether from that one.
I thought it was Shannara.
Shannara. Either one's good, and even he would say it's okay.
Oh, really? Because when they did the MTV series, Shannara Chronicles, they would all say Shannara. But it was shot in New Zealand, so maybe they got swayed that way.
But basically, the first book is called Magic Kingdom for Sale Sold. It's about a widower lawyer who basically finds like, you know, no purpose in life because his wife died, and he's obviously very, very sad and grieving. So he's trying to find a new purpose in life, and he just happens to come across a sale for a magical kingdom, and he decides to just go for it and puts down $1 million to say, I want to buy this.
Already sounds better than a fairy tale.
But then he finds out when he gets there, the kingdom's in shambles because it doesn't have a king, or had a good one that lasts long. He has little to no actual royal subjects that will help him, except for a court wizard that's not really good at being a court wizard. An advisor who got turned into a Wheaton Terrier human person, and two kobolds that aren't like the little dog people kobolds, but more like wolf dog men guys.
Cool. Okay.
So, and so basically it's this whole goal of like trying to become the king that's worthy of being king in this world, who just happens to be from our world. So think like Mark Twain's Connecticut Yankee in King Arthur's court, but instead of him becoming King Arthur.
But it's this whole premise again of being worthy to be a king. It's like being worthy to be a promised prince.
Yeah. And there's like, I think like 6 books right now. He still hasn't really come to a conclusion yet, but it's a good series.
I read Magic Kingdom for Sale Sold. I loved it, and I thought of that immediately when I read Fairy Tale. I saw that. So yeah, I haven't read the other ones after the first, or maybe I read the second one, but I've read it after.
And he does like these little excerpts from other fairy tale stories. Like the first book, he does like a little excerpt from Wizard of Oz. Second book does play heavily into The Last Unicorn for the theme. Next one's like Bottled Imp. So he borrows from other fairies. So he does borrow from other stories, like, you know, uses like a theme to like start, but then kind of does his own thing. What the author did. Yeah, there's my rec.
Academic. I saw a hand fly up.
Yeah. So I heard hard sci-fi. So I guess this is an old rec, which is the Bobaverse series. If you haven't read that one, I would say that's a fun one. And I
What's
think that
Bobaverse?
Bobaverse. The summary is you have some tech bro who's down on his luck because his fiance cheated on him, and he's like, "Well, I'm going to go and get like myself cloned or my brain imaged or whatever." And then he went up and dies because while he's crossing the Las Vegas Strip, so because some truck coon comes in and kills him, right? And he is essentially rewoken as an AI entity, essentially. So he is the person that's controlling a computer, and the world is on the brink of war, essentially. And so, like, that's the beginning 2 chapters of the Bobaverse series, and there's 4 books total. And I think that it just got optioned for a TV series recently announced. So, totally recommended that one. For something that's more lit RPG, think Dungeon Crawler Carl genre. I am a fan of He Who Fights with Monsters, which follows Jason Asano, who is this Aussie who gets taken into another world, and it's a great audiobook listen as well. So if that's one that I would recommend there. And then on the more fantasy, there's this series from this that's a little problematic. I feel like the first 3 books of it, because it's more written towards teen boys, and it's like a growing, coming of age story.
Like
But
Shojin.
it's I don't know. I've never read Shojin, but like
Shojin's the type of anime, so of like young boy. That's like hero's journey.
Not Shojin style. It's more like if Game of Thrones had more descriptive, like
titties.
I don't know about bodies. Yeah,
Titties.
like sex scenes and body parts. Yeah, it's
Got it.
primarily that's the more problematic part of it. But I think the themes are pretty mature, especially for like what this despite all of that. But then what I would really recommend is book 4, which I think you might be able to read without reading the first 3 books, because that's him exploring in a completely different area of his life, and it's phenomenal. And that's one's called oh gosh, it's Brent Weeks, and the most recent book was
Is this like from the Night Angel trilogy?
Yeah, the Night Angel, but the 4th book was recently released, and that was phenomenal.
Hold on. Is this what you've been describing this entire time? The first 3 books are problematic. I loved the Night Angel trilogy. I loved them.
I thought
that was so
phenomenal.
well done. The initial iteration of the book club that I did, I had Brent Weeks on, and we spoke about his books for like 2 hours.
Really?
Yeah, I love Night Angel trilogy. I didn't think it was.
I like the other one.
What's the other one? Is that the one with the titties?
Prism.
Which one had the titties?
Yeah, it was the Black Prism.
I'll read it.
Yeah. So you should read the book 4 for sure, because it made me cry multiple times throughout it, and that was phenomenal. Yeah, it was great.
You got to lead with Brent Weeks around here. He's great. I love him as an author. Clever Girl, reading some of Sanderson. What's Sunlit Man? Is that a new one of his? Is this one of the 4 books that he wrote during COVID?
Yep.
Aha.
Last one.
Yeah, this is the last of the 4. It kind of goes along, I think, with Dawn Shard. Which I have but haven't read, and now think maybe it would have been helpful if I'd read it.
Got it.
But I've got a couple of recs, I think. One of the I recently read a book called Of Deeds Most Valiant, and the author was inspired by Gideon the Ninth. But
our favorite.
It's yeah, but it's a lot easier to follow than that. It's this group of holy paladins go into they're looking for this chalice in what's supposed to be an abandoned monastery, and the youngest of the paladins, her mentor well, actually, she just had to kill her mentor when he became possessed by a demon, but now the demon is in her dog. So
What?
she and this demon possessed dog join these other paladins and go into this abbey that is all destroyed, and nothing is really as it seems. I mean, there's all kinds of twists and turns to it.
Hold on, we're getting
So-
sold. Toaster Poster says Paladins. What is this book?
It's called A Deeds Most Valiant.
Deeds Most Valiant. We got to write that. Put that in the list somehow. The list. The
Okay.
list. Oh, you got another rec?
Yeah, there's one other that I keep bringing up, hoping that maybe somebody will read it with me sometime. It's called The Inheritance of Orquídea Divina. And it's a little bit, well, it's kind of like Encanto, but with Cinderella and Stardust thrown in, only a dark, dysfunctional family.
Oh, that sounds cool. Kate says, I own that book. Orinquina Divinia. Orinquina Divinia. Yeah. So Kate's got it. So that's the more we talk about it.
It's
let's
a good
post.
book. Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
The author's from Ecuador.
Oh, that's awesome. I like that a lot. Skeletor, you're reading a Star Wars book, Lost Tribes of the Sith?
Yes.
Tell me about it. Oh.
It's I guess it's part of the old EU.
Legends.
So Legends, yeah. And I guess it started life as a series of online kind of novellas, and then somebody put them all in one book and printed them.
Got it.
So
well, it's not canon.
They're kind of loosely connected, and yeah, they're not canon, but I've been a fan of the EU since I was a kid, when I read the OG Thrawn trilogy in like 7th grade. So, anyways, that's kind of what I've been doing in the time where I was not participating in book club. I was like, I kind of want to dive back into the EU, so I did, and that's where I'm at.
Now you regret it.
And I don't regret it, but this is the first time I've read this Lost Tribes of the Sith book, and it's okay.
Academic says, woo, Star Wars fanfic, because all EU is fan fiction now.
At that point, yeah, I mean, it kind of is.
Yeah.
But anyways, so yeah, it's okay. I've been just struggling to read in general lately.
You're in a bit of a slump. It's because you don't have eyeballs.
Yeah, it's hard to read when you have no eyeballs and no ears for audiobooks. So I am looking forward to next month, because especially after yesterday and hearing Pierce talk about Morningstar, I'm so ready to dig into Iron Gold.
That was a really fun chat.
Also, he yelled at me in Seattle for not reading it.
Okay, so now you're gonna write that wrong. I like.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Blue Reader Gal, you've got 2 recommendations here. I want to learn a little bit more about Light Lark and the Book of Doors. Help me with that. Robin, you're reading our bonus book for the month. You're 50% through Death is My BFF. Check in. How is it going? I start it tomorrow.
Super quick read.
Great.
It's pretty fun. But yeah, I'm enjoying it so far. I'm intrigued to see where it's going to go.
What's the premise?
A girl is spared from death when she's like 8 years old, and Death says he's going to come back for her when she's 18.
Okay. But then they...
Nothing's happened like that yet.
Death is going around going, she's legal. She's legal now. Okay?
That's kind of what I thought at first. I was like, please don't be like that.
Oh.
I swear to God, if we have a bonus Let Them Smooch with the Grim Reaper, I'm out.
I'm in.
There are a lot of books and fan fiction about that type of topic. It's not a new thing.
I'm figuring, since the name is Death is My BFF, that's not going to happen, because there is another love interest in it. So,
okay,
there is a book series that I see at work where it's like each book is one of the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse falling in love with a human woman, and I want to die every time I see it.
So that you too could fall in love with One of the horsemen?
No, just so I don't have to look at it anymore.
Okay, yep. Academic says, not what most people think when you say death wants to bone you. Hey, where's the... There it is. Darren, a great sci-fi series for people who are looking for one. Ancillary Justice by Anne Leckie. Tell us about that one.
Yeah, so it follows a main character who is an AI trapped in a singular body. The AIs in this, it's sort of this expansionist empire, and their ships are all controlled by AIs that have basically bodies, these ancillaries that are kind of shock troopers. And then the main character, she is one of these AIs, and her ship gets destroyed, leaving her trapped in a singular body. And so she's trying to get revenge on what she thinks happened to her.
Because she has to live more like a human. Ugh.
Yeah, and it's a little bit interesting. The society, the main society, the only pronoun that they have is she, her. So everybody is a she, her, even though their sexes are male or female. So there's a little bit of that, because that's not every society. It's just this main sort of one that's in control. So there's a little bit of confusion for her on some other planets. But it's a really good series. It won the Hugo Awards back in the day. So.
Okay, some sci-fi, loving it. Star Pilot 6 says, I do like that series. So we've got fans here already. Catch22 says, I have a question. If you have a question, you need to raise your hand, please.
You know I can't do that.
I just need to raise your hand.
You know I can't do that. I have no ligaments.
Go on. Just a little... No, I'm deadly serious about that. Raise your hand. I can see that there's a shoulder bone. Shoulder bone's connected to your elbow.
Yes, but there's no ligaments or muscles to make the joint move. This is biology 101. Anyways, are we ever going to get back into the Murderbot series?
Oh, I wouldn't mind it. We did it in December last year. We could probably do that. Have we got a bonus book for December yet? We do. Dungeon Crawler Carls 3 and 4.
I would be down to get back into Murderbot.
All right, we've got a new channel for the members of Book Club called Book Pick. Let's pop those books in Book Pick. I think if everyone can do it and then pin it so I can see everyone's thing, and if you want to edit it, then you can edit it. But if everyone puts their recs and then pins the post, I can see all the recs. Get wrecked. Book good? Book Pick. Yeah, we'll work on that. Let's do Murderbot next year. Can we pin? I'll see if we can get you to pin it. We might have to add that function in there. I'm getting wrapped. Of Deeds Most Paladin. What? Oh, you've been writing them in there. Good-o. We'd love to see it. Robin says, trying to catch up on Murderbot. How many did the group read? The first 4. They're pretty much like novellas. So I think the audiobooks were like no more than 4 hours, right? It's about a 4-hour listen. So if you're Lisa and I, it's about 90 minutes, give or take. The next one is bigger though. Yeah, it starts being less novella and more actual novel. But I miss Murderbot. I had a lot of fun with those. It's a full novel, says K Frito. Love it. Jimmy, did you have a book that you were reading? A rec?
I did have a rec, yes. So this book is, as you may or may not know, I'm from Long Island. And so this book is about the centering of the crash of the TWA 800 flight.
Did Tom Hanks save that flight? Is that one?
I don't know if that's the movie based on it, but yeah, it's basically they were bound for Paris, but they ended up crashing in the Atlantic coast of Long Island, New York, and 230 people died, and they didn't know where the bodies went. You know, and so it's like an investigation series kind of.
Oh, that's
thing.
really
like,
interesting.
Where did these people go? You know, like so it's like a whole thing.
Oh wow!
It was on the news a lot. Boeing 747, Paris.
It's not the Tom Hanks movie, yeah.
It probably is, but it's it's just basically, like I said, it's a crime drama, I guess you could say.
This is the one that happened pretty soon after September 11th, right? So people thought it was another terrorist attack at first.
Yes, it
Is that
happened
the
in
one?
2001.
Yeah. People were scared there was more terrorism. Yeah.
Exactly. So is the whole thing. And the only reason why I read it is because, again, it's based on Long Island. And I like to learn about stuff that happens where I live. That's just me.
Do you reckon there's a portal? There's a portal that goes into Empus? I mean, that's fascinating. I like all that stuff. KP Dubs is in the house. Hey, KP Dubs. How was work? What are you reading at the moment? What have you got a book rec for us?
Reading at the moment, rereading the first couple of books, getting ready for December, and I'm going to reread Morningstar book. I do have a rec. It's nonfiction.
Go on.
It's a book about a little-known battle in World War II called The Battle off Samar. Called Last Stand of the Tin Can Sailors.
Oh.
And it follows this battle where basically it was towards the end of the war. Japanese fleet was outnumbered like 10-1 to the U.S., but they basically set a trap to try and draw most of the forces away from the Leyte Islands and the Philippines. And the U.S. fell for it. And so their big fleet comes around the corner, and there's just a half a dozen little teeny tiny destroyers left in the U.S. try to defend 100,000 Marines on the beach. And one of the famous quotes from one of the captains of the ship is, "Gentlemen, this will be a fight from which we cannot hope for survival. We will do what damage we can." They went into battle, and they somehow made the Japanese think they were 10 times they were, and the book talks about some of the Pacific sailors that all kinds of creative.
So it's incredibly different to what we've been doing in book club.
Yes. For example, the one ship had 600 rounds of ammunition. They fired 599 rounds during the battle. When they finally were ordered to abandon ship by the captain, the first officer found gunner's mate, Carl something, dang, Paul Carl, I think, and he was holding that last 600th round with his guts hanging out all over the floor, going, "Sir, help me load this in. I'm not going down while we still have ammo."
Oh my goodness.
He died a moment later. And yeah, so there's some incredible stories. And
yeah, wow. Every now and then it would go out for a couple of seconds, but I pieced together what you were saying. You're rereading Dungeon Crawler 1 and 2 to prepare for 3 and 4. You're rereading Morningstar because we're going to be doing Iron Gold next month. Academic, how many times is this going to be your read for Iron Gold?
I think it's going to be my third or fourth. It's definitely, and let's be clear, it's my third or fourth listen. And it's kind of hard because I feel like the audio levels in Iron Gold are so much worse than they were in like books.
The new
2 and
narrators
3.
I don't love. I think I'm going to read this book exclusively. I'm not going to listen to it. Just a heads up, everyone.
Yeah, would recommend if you are listening to this. If you do both, then I would read this instead of listen. And probably. Sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, you keep going. I have a snarky comment to make.
Oh yeah, it's just even book 5 kind of suffered from the same thing.
I agree. I didn't finish it.
I liked book 5 more than book 4 though. So if you read it, it's better.
Okay, I'm going to do annotations and everything. I'm going to be like one of those book talkie gals. I liked the color palette I had. Oh, it's right here. Because they were like, I did packs or the Altalamaduses. Yep. They were blue. Gold Mustang was literally like the Mustang color. Anything that happened with like Severo or like a red, the reds, I would do the red one. Grays, obviously, that was the grays. And this is going to be helpful for the next book because we have point of views from a red and a gold-esque and a gray.
My snarky comment, Maude, was as our resident tall, blonde, blue-eyed person, Gold, you should take over as the voice actor, clearly.
Listen,
obviously.
I tried to, we've got one more book in this series. This is my last chance. I think I pitched a very strong, pitch. Ugh, damn. to try and get my name in the book. Now, KP Dubs was one who drew it to my attention that Maude has AU in it, which is what the gold symbol is on the periodic chart. But then someone else said I should be Maude Garrett.
That was me. I gift wrapped that for Pierce.
It was amazing. Okay, now that I know it was Skeletor, Maude.
I think you should be a rim
Garrett.
gold, FYI.
Which
Because they have
gold?
funny accents. A rim gold.
Well, I mean, I made the argument that the rim golds. That sounds bad. I made an argument that the rim golds were. They said they had an Australian accent in the book. Tim Reynolds gave them a South African accent, but I think that bronze. That was my argument. Bronze golds had an Aussie accent, so Severo actually sounds like this when he talks. Unhear that. I reckon bronze golds. So if you've got the girls and they sound like this, and then you've got the bronze golds, and I reckon they're Australian, big time. Oh,
I mean,
I'm a bloody gold,
right?
mate. What is it?
They're basically criminals, right? Of the gold, so.
I mean, it's criminal that they're so good.
Exactly.
But yeah, Severo is like, oh, right, mate, pull your head in. Oh, thank you. She still got it. That is time. Your homework. Thank you for reading Fairy Tale. Leave your reviews in the... Do we have like a review section? Surely we have... We have reviews. Yeah, leave your reviews in the review section on the Discord. If you haven't joined the Discord, do it now. We are on Fable. Leave your comments in there. I did it for the first half. I didn't do it for the second half. A comment that I want to talk to the members after the show is, do we need to make a second Fable account with our bonus book? MBBC. Join our Fable.
I was wondering about that.
Yeah.
I thought that might be more convenient.
I do too,
because
we're doing by book check-ins, 2 check-ins per book for the main book. I'm thinking about doing 1 check-in for the bonus book, but it would be cool to still have, because I really like the check-in process that we have, and I think Fable allows you to do a chapter check-in as well with it. Captain Awesomeball says, a priest, a rabbi, and a monk walk into a bar. The bartender looks us up and says, oh, what is this? Some kind of joke? Boom tish. Boom tish. Boom tish. Who's gonna boom? Thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Lisa. That was a while. Captain Awesome Balls is here going, I set you up and I didn't get my boom tish. We're doing Iron Gold. Where were you, Aaron? We're doing Iron Gold for all of November. I think we're going to do the schedule tasks. We've kind of locked in the schedule. I think the first Wednesday, because Loki's Thursday for me. So we're going back to Wednesdays. Sorry to do a bit of a muck about with everyone, but paid work, you know, I've got to work hard for that money. So Loki's on Thursday nights, and I'm going to be doing those live, I think, for 5 and 6. So 8 and 22. Thank you, K Frito. The November 8th, part 1, November 22, part 2. So get to it. Get stuck into it now. Holy shit. I'm behind. If you want to read the bonus book, I will be interviewing the author for that on the 4th of November. Even if you just want to chat about how she became an author, she used Wattpad. So Wattpad or Wattpad? Wattpad. Wattpad is a platform where, like, it's usually fan fiction, but authors can put up sort of passages, chapters, some of their work. And Kat was nominated the best book on Wattpad, and it got it published that way. So it's a really cool way, and I want to have an inspirational talk about how writers can get their stuff out there. What's that? Chris used to do it all the time. There's like a writing challenge. Is that in November as well? You have to write a certain amount of words per day. I'm going to try
NaNoWriMo.
Yeah. Is that November? Literally, NaNoWriMo. NaNoWriMo.
Yeah, it's NaNoWriMo.
50,000 words in November. If you need a place to do it for accountability, we do have a writing section in the Discord. Get some stuff out there. Which pad? That pad? What pad? Thank you, K Frito. What pad? Oh, that pad. In saying that, should we raid Patrick Rothfuss at the moment, who apparently is doing a stream with the narrators of his books? And I may have made a Maude's Book Club for Nano. Oh, really, Gory? You can do that? My dear sweet child. Okay.
He's on a break right now.
Oh, he is on a break?
Yeah.
Trisha's on. How long do you think the break will be for? Oh, I'm letting everyone know if you want to check out Patrick Rothfuss's stream. He is on right now. Trisha. Everyone say hi to Trisha for me. Yeah, shout out to Patrick Rothfuss. I like that. Hirschberger. Lovely. We'll go raid. Oh, please guys, stay just to say hi to Trisha so I don't look like a loser. Oh no, people are losing it. Ah. Eee. Ooh. Bye everyone. 52 people. That's okay. That's okay. Oh, she's offline. She just went offline? Oh, that's funny. She just left.
Oopsie.
No,
That's
she loses.
great timing, Maude.
Yeah, that's so Maude. That is such a Maude thing.